Hello everyone, how are you today? I hope you are fine and healthy as always, yeah. Welcome back to the Native Mobile Programming course for the 10th week today. Yeah, we will delve into a new topic which is I think it is an exciting topic, yeah. We will learn about external database, yeah, how we incorporate database into our application. And actually there are two types of database. We will talk about it later. So, in today's video, we will talk about four topics actually. The fifth is reserved for the next week. So, we will talk about the REST API concept. Well, yeah, what is a REST API? And then we will create our own web service or API to be consumed later by our Android application. Yeah, we will consume it at the third part of today's course. Yeah, we will display a playlist data in our Android application. And then lastly, we will display the playlist in the recycler view. Yeah, and then we will continue next week with sending data from our application through the API. So we can store data or maybe change or even delete some data in the database in the server. Yeah, we send the request through our application. Okay, before we start, for everyone who has just come to this course today, please finish the app from the week 9 tutorial, which is last week. I will provide the links to the playlist in the description below. If you don't have it, please install a web server first, which is the Apache, and then please also install PHP. Any version is fine, preferably version 7 or version 8, it's okay also. And a database server, yeah. MySQL or MariaDB is okay. Yeah, if you don't really know how to install this software or this server components separately, yeah, Apache, then PHP and MySQL or MariaDB, you may use some web development package, yeah. For example, like SAMP here. In my machine myself, I don't use some actually, but I use IIS, then I use PHP and MySQL. Yeah, but the steps provided in the course today applies to everyone. Yeah, applies to you who use SAMP. So please do so. If you don't have it, just download SAMP, then yeah, install everything Apache, PHP, and MariaDB at least. Yeah, and then you can continue. Okay, then let's get into things. Yeah, the first topic we want to talk about is the REST API concept. Yeah. What is actually a REST API? Maybe for API you have heard it, but for REST, what is it? Yeah. Does that mean that our application need to rest first before we can do anything? Yeah, let's find out. But before talking about the REST API, let's talk about external and internal database first. Yeah. Previously, I have said that we have two types of database, yeah, the external and the internal one. What is meant by external and internal actually? So external database means that the database is stored and accessed outside of the app. Usually the database resides in the server. Yeah, for example, like in this illustration here, I have my Android device here, yeah, and then I have my database. It is stored separately, maybe in a server, yeah, in somewhere. Then my application can ask or request some data from the database, and then the request is responded, yeah, is processed or is received by the server, then it is processed and then will be returned to my application. Yeah, so this is what is meant by external database. Yeah, the database does not reside at the same device as the application. Yeah, meanwhile, there is an internal database. In this case, the database is actually stored and accessed within the app itself. Yeah, so the illustration is over here at the right side. We have the internal database. Yeah, it is stored in the same device as our Android application. Yeah, for internal database, I think Android uses SQLite. Yeah, you can learn it by yourself. It is quite simple, but how to access it maybe a little bit different with what we will learn today. Yeah? We will learn only the external database. Yeah, for internal database, you can search on your own. Yeah, you can start by learning Room. Yeah, what Android Room. Let's see, Android Room. Yeah, here I get the first result, Android database with Room. You can use this to access the database either in internal or external. Yeah, I think Android database with Room is reserved for internal database, but I might be wrong. Oh, sorry, my developer is in Bahasa, so let me scan it a little quick. This is only the version. Oh, okay. Blah blah blah. The library room gives a session. Oh, SQLite. So, room is used to access SQLite. Yeah, but for external database, I think we will learn it today. Okay, so but you can learn by yourself for internal database by learning about Android Room. Okay, now let's focus only on the external database. Yeah, by security purposes, our application should not query directly into any external databases. Yeah, because any direct access will impose a security issues, and authorized access is usually harder to prevent. Yeah, that's why for external databases, usually we will need a middleman or intermediary to be for our application to be able to access some data in the database. So that's when the API comes. API is the acronym for Application Programming Interface, yeah, API. So the API is actually a intermediary software that allows two applications to talk to each other. Yeah, in our case, our application will talk to the server or to the database by using API. There is an intermediary between our application and the database. Yeah, API acts as the middleman between the client and server. So the client never accesses the database directly on the server. Yeah. And usually the client does not really know the physical location of the server, and the client does not need to know. Yeah. They can just give their request through the API. Yeah, API will send it to the server. The server will process it if it is maybe checking if the request is valid and the application has enough access to the data. Yeah, then it will process it and return the data as a response to back to the client. An API protocol defines the rules for any API calls. Yeah, it specifies accepted data types and commands available for the client to be invoked on the server. Yeah, so for example, we have two type of API protocol here. The first one is SOAP. It is not taught on native mobile programming, but on another course, which is distributed programming. And the other one is REST, which we will learn today. Yeah, so what is a rest? Do we need to take a rest? Yeah, it's not that kind of rest. Yeah, the rest stand for representational state transfer, REST. So REST is an engineered approach to provide us some kind of standards between computer systems on the web, making it accessible for systems to communicate with each other. So this is one way for many applications to be able to communicate with each other, especially on the web. Yeah, if a system uses REST, yeah, the REST compliant system, usually they are called a RESTful system, and they are characterized by how they are usually stateless. Yeah, they don't introduce or understand any states between them, and usually we will have client and server connections over here, and the communication is caged by some kind of protocol, for example HTTP, yeah, like we will use today. So this is the illustration of using a REST web service. We have a client over here and we have a server over here, usually represented by cloud. Yeah, maybe our data is stored in the cloud. So the client will communicate with the server using a REST API. Yeah, maybe requesting something, requesting some data, and the server will process and then reply it by the response maybe in form of JSON. JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. We will learn a little bit of JSON today. So now that we know that the RESTful system is actually stateless, so the implementation of the client and the implementation of the server can be done independently or maybe parallelly, yeah, without knowing about each other. Yeah, aside of the client should know the available commands for requesting something in the server. Yeah, but that's all. Yeah, the implementation, how the server actually processes the commands. Yeah, the client do not know anything about it. Yeah, the client does not know anything about the implementation of the command, how the server processing the commands. Yeah, and the server also does not know how the client actually invokes or yields the command. Yeah, maybe for example, the client must process something first, maybe by a kind of form input, then it clicks send, then the client actually sends the data to the server. Yeah, now the server does not need to know how the data is prepared. Yeah, it only knows about the command invoked and the data related to the command. Yeah, that's all. Yeah, so here the server does not need to know anything about what state the client is and vice versa. Yeah, the client does not need to know anything about the state of the server. And both the server and the client can understand any message received even without seeing previous messages. Yeah, so by any time the server can receive any comments from the client. Yeah, as long as the comment adheres to some specification. Yeah, maybe some list of keywords. Yeah, as long as it adheres to this list of keywords, then the server can process it. Yeah, and then the result can be sent back to the client. Yeah, regardless of any messages that the client and server may have exchanged. Yeah, so we only care about the current transaction, if you will. Yeah. And RESTful system usually do not rely on the implementation of interfaces, yeah, as we will see later for our RESTful API, we don't develop any user interface on the server side. Okay, to be able to make request, yeah, the REST requires that a client make a request to the server in order to retrieve or modify some data on the server. So a request generally consists of an HTTP verb, yeah, maybe post and get. Yeah, we will use post most of the time, but you can also use get. Yeah, this HTTP verb defines what kind of operation to perform on the server. And then it consists of a path to a resource in form of URL. And then the last one is an optional message body containing the data needed to perform the operation. Yeah, so this is what requests consist of. Now we will create some kind of JSON RPC. Yeah, RPC is actually a remote procedural call protocol, and we will use one type of them, which is a JSON. Yeah, JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation, and it has some advantages. Yeah, the first one, it is lightweight. A JSON file usually is very small because it is basically a text file. Yeah, it's easy to understand. We as human can read JSON directly and we can understand the content of any JSON file. Yeah, because it is also to the point. Yeah, we will take a look at some JSON later. And JSON now is universal. Yeah, it is accepted everywhere. Many apps can read JSONs so the data transfer among apps is possible and easy regardless of the language specification. Yeah, so for example, maybe our application, Android application, is developed in Kotlin. Yeah, and then our API, JSON RPC, is developed in PHP, obviously. Yeah, but our application and our API can transfer data in the form of JSON. Yeah, this is one example of JSON RPC. Let's open this website. Yeah, JSON placeholder typecode.com. I will give the link in the description below. Yeah, and then let's take a look at some kind of samples here. Yeah, we have example in resources over here. Let's try albums. Okay, I will zoom it in. So this is one kind or example of JSON. Yeah, this is also one example of JSON. And if you take a look here, we have a bracket over here. Yeah, we have a bracket which indicates an array. Yeah, this one is a JSON array. Then what is followed or between curly braces is a JSON object. Yeah, so this one is one JSON object. Then we have some key and value. Yeah, so this is a key and value pair. It means that this JSON object have some fields. Yeah, if you may. The first field is user ID with the value of 1. Then we have another field called ID, which is its value is also 1. And we have another field title, and the value is, I think this is a Latin, yeah, quidem molestiae enim, maybe. I don't really understand Latin, so I don't know what it means. Yeah? But this is one example of JSON object. Yeah, it is always between a curly braces. Okay, a key usually is a string and it is usually wrapped in quotes. Yeah, so as you can see here, the user ID, and the title is wrapped between double quote. Yeah. In the meantime, for the value, it may be an integer, any number, and also string as well. Yeah, and the key value pair is separated by a comma. And then another JSON object is also separated by a comma. Yeah, and the whole thing is actually a JSON array, yeah, denoted by these braces. Yeah, so if you have a hard time to understand that kind of JSON, which is very compact, yeah, a compact JSON, just use a tool. We have a JSON viewer here. Yeah, later we will use it. I will put the link to the JSON viewer in the description. Yeah. Okay, I think we will skip it until we try ourselves by pasting some JSON string. Yeah. Or maybe if you want, I guess we can try it. Although this one is quite simple, I will use another, let's see, maybe users. Okay, yeah. Let's try copying this JSON of users. Then we'll take a look at the online JSON viewer. Yeah, as you can see here, there are nested objects. Yeah, for the address, it is another JSON object which contains street, suit, city, and so on. And we have another JSON object which is a geo, maybe it stands for geolocation, which has latitude and longitude. Yeah, I'll copy all of this JSON string and I will paste it over here. Paste. Yeah, this is the JSON string, and then I'll click the viewer tab. and you will get the visualization of any JSON object, yeah, like this. So the viewer indicates that this is a JSON array which have uh, 0 to 9. So this JSON array has 10 JSON objects, yeah, and we can expand the JSON object by one. So if I expand the 0th object or the first object, yeah, we can see that the ID is 1. The name is Lian Graham. Username is Brett. Email some sincere at april.biz, and I can expand the address. I have the street cool last night, suit, blah blah blah, and so on. Yeah, you can use this JSON viewer to be able to understand the content of any JSON string. Yeah, especially if there are nested JSON objects like this. Okay, I think that's all about the introduction of the JSON RPC. Yeah, in the next video, we will talk about a web service or API, and actually we will create our own custom web service. Yeah, later it will be consumed by our Android application. Yeah, I guess it's time. It's a good time to stop here, and then I remind you again. Yeah, if you have not done so, please finish the app from the week 9 tutorial. Again, I will put the link to the playlist in the description below. And you must have web server with PHP and MySQL or MariaDB installed in your machine. Yeah, you can use some. Only then you are ready to continue to the second topic. Yeah. If you are ready, then please do so. We will continue to the next video.